The superhero drawing. Leo's reflection stared back from Gadget Galaxy's darkened window, a funhouse mirror of flashing electronics and grasping robot arms. He grimaced. His trusty navy button-down looked as though it had lost a brawl. He tugged at the fabric, clinging uncomfortably to his midsection, then raked a weary hand through his already chaotic hair. He probably looked like he'd lost a fight with a trash can. Sleep had been a fickle visitor last night, offering only fleeting moments of rest. From his battered messenger bag, he carefully drew out a piece of construction paper, its edges softened and bearing a suspicious strawberry jam stain. Lily's superhero? A crayon-wielding champion, cape billowing, radiating crayon lightning from tiny fists. Scrawled beneath, in clumsy print, "My daddy is the best." A smile flickered across his face, easing the knot in his shoulders, however briefly. That familiar weight buoyed by a child's innocent faith. He traced the hero's head with a calloused thumb. Best felt like a stretch, but he was striving. Striving fiercely. He drew a breath, the air thick with cheap aftershave and the ghost of last night's pizza. He needed this job with a desperation that clawed at him. Lily deserved more, stability, a good education, maybe even that ridiculous pony constantly featured in her dreams. He smoothed the drawing, returning it to its sanctuary beside his meticulously crafted resume. Across the street, the Maxwell Thorne building towered, a sheer cliff of glass and steel piercing the sky. Its surface mirrored the city back in a fractured, shimmering abstraction. A cold fist clenched in Leo's gut. The interview. Everything hinged on this. He started forward, then stalled. Sweat slicked his palms. He scrubbed them against his pants, a useless gesture. The insidious whisper of doubt threatened to drown him. Not adequate. Not refined. Just Leo. Pancake artist, storyteller, single dad. What did he know of balance sheets and leverage buyouts? He pictured Mr. Thorne, the CEO, his granite features etched onto the company website. A man accustomed to bespoke suits and caviar canapes. Leo had started his day with lukewarm coffee and a rogue Cheerio. Lily's face bloomed in his mind, her bright eyes overflowing with unshakable belief. The memory of her presenting him with the drawing, her small hand trusting in his, fortified him. He had to do this. For her. He moved forward, one step, then another, planting himself at the base of the monolithic structure. Shoulders squared, he inhaled deeply and pushed through the revolving door. A wave of icy, processed air engulfed him, a stark contrast to the muggy street. He was inside. No turning back. Shiny shoes and empty promises. The polished leather felt alien on his feet. Shiny shoes and empty promises. That's what he was wearing. He could almost see Lily's face, beaming, as he'd knelt to tie the laces this morning. Ice cream, right, Daddy? If you get the job? Her small hand, sticky with jam from breakfast, had patted his cheek. He'd sworn he'd felt a surge of confidence then, a certainty that he could conquer anything. Now, standing before the glass doors, the certainty had evaporated, leaving a hollow ache in its place. He remembered last Tuesday's dinner, instant noodles, the cheap kind that tasted mostly of salt and regret. Lily had pretended they were gourmet, adding imaginary spices and declaring it the best meal ever. Her imagination was a superpower, a shield against the grim reality of their lives. He needed to land this job, not just for himself, but to protect that shield. He ran a hand through his hair, hoping to flatten the cowlick that always seemed to defy gravity at the most inopportune moments. It was no use. He tugged at the knot of his tie, feeling the constricting pressure build in his chest. He pictured the interviewer, Mr. Harding, with his crisp suit and condescending smile. A man who probably hadn't eaten instant noodles in his life. Taking a deep breath, Leo pushed through the revolving doors and into the cool, sterile lobby. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and unspoken ambition. He fumbled for the visitor's badge, his fingers clumsy and unresponsive. Behind the security desk, Mr. Abernathy, a kindly man with eyes that crinkled at the corners, gave him a warm smile. "Big day, huh, Leo?" Leo managed a weak nod. Abe, as everyone called him, always seemed to know exactly when someone needed a little encouragement. He'd seen Leo coming and going for weeks now, attending workshops and informational sessions at the building. "You got this," Abe said, his voice a low rumble. "Go get M." He winked, the gesture surprisingly reassuring. Leo straightened his shoulders, feeling a sliver of the morning's confidence return. Abe's simple words, the genuine warmth in his eyes, acted like a tiny spark igniting a dormant flame. He adjusted his tie again, this time with a steadier hand. Shiny shoes and maybe, just maybe, not empty promises. He walked towards the elevators, the click of his heels echoing in the vast space, a steady rhythm accompanying his hesitant steps. Coffee catastrophe. Her handshake bordered on a test of strength, Miss Sterling's grasp surprisingly powerful. Mr. Maxwell, she intoned, her voice a deep cello note. Welcome. Please be seated. Leo forced a smile, carefully settling into the chair, which felt disconcertingly like quicksand. The office was a testament to modern severity. Stark glass and cold steel framed a cityscape that only amplified his apprehension. A steaming cup of coffee perched precariously on the polished surface between them seemed a deliberate taunt. So, Ms. Sterling began, reclining slightly, her eyes locking onto his. Your resume presents an intriguing profile. Convince me, Mr. Maxwell, why Sterling Advertising needs you. Leo's mouth went parched. He reached for the coffee, hoping for a jolt of clarity. As the cup lifted, his hand betrayed him with a slight tremor. A splash of the dark brew escaped, staining the immaculate white table with an expanding blot. Oh, heavens! I'm terribly sorry, he stammered, frantically searching for a non-existent napkin. The spill spread like a creeping shadow. Miss Sterling's face remained an impassive mask. She opened a drawer and placed a neat stack of tissues within easy reach. Accidents happen. Regain your composure, Mr. Maxwell. Mortified, Leo dabbed at the mess, feeling a flush creep up his neck. He could practically watch his chances dissolve with the spilled coffee. Drawing a steadying breath, he attempted to recover. Certainly. My passion lies in understanding people, in forging connections. A skeptical arch of an eyebrow was her response. And how does that translate into a winning campaign, Mr. Maxwell? Details? Details? His mind, once brimming with prepared answers, was now a blank canvas. He'd envisioned this interview countless times, rehearsed eloquent speeches, but under her unwavering gaze, his thoughts coalesced into a jumbled mess. It's about pinpointing the target audience and then crafting a message to address their specific needs? The words sounded vapid even to his own ears. He loathed the nervous stutter in his voice. Miss Sterling tented her fingers, her expression thoughtful but unreadable. And what real-world experience validates this approach? Leo stumbled. His marketing background consisted primarily of helping with local bake sales and school events. He possessed a genuine talent for generating enthusiasm, but nothing on the scale of Sterling Advertising. Well, he hesitated. I haven't had extensive formal training as such, but I learned quickly and possess a relentless dedication. I'm prepared to outwork anyone. The words felt thin and desperate even to him. Miss Sterling leaned forward, her gaze intense. Diligence is expected, Mr. Maxwell. I require someone who brings vision, who offers a fresh perspective. Do you possess these qualities? The impatient pen tapped. The air in Miss Sterling's office grew heavy, a tangible pressure with each ticking second. Leo fought back a surge of nausea. Sunlight slashed through the blinds, painting stripes across the room, each bar a jeering reminder of his missteps. So, Mr. Maxwell, Miss Sterling began, her tone silken yet sharp as a razor, your resume presents an interesting period of inactivity. Perhaps you could elaborate. Leo shifted, the rented suit clinging to him like a second skin in the close atmosphere. The question, anticipated and dreaded, now hung in the air like a suspended sentence. His rehearsed explanation had vanished, leaving him grasping for purchase. He worried the edge of the resume, the paper whispering in the oppressive quiet. It's somewhat involved. The unsteady tremor in his voice mortified him. Miss Sterling's gaze sharpened, her brow lifting almost imperceptibly. Involved how? He cleared his parched throat. My primary focus became raising my daughter. After my wife's passing, she needed me. He averted his eyes, latching onto an abstract painting, a chaotic blend of cerulean and emerald that felt like a mocking reflection of his disarray. I understand, Miss Sterling replied, her expression a carefully constructed mask. Then came the sound. A delicate, persistent tapping against the gleaming expanse of her mahogany desk. The silver pen, previously at rest, became a tiny hammer forging his despair. He pressed on. I did some freelance work, graphic design primarily, but nothing particularly noteworthy. My priority was Lily. He cringed inwardly at the hollow ring of noteworthy. Good God, he sounded adrift. Tap, tap, tap. The pen's insistent rhythm continued, each tap a nail hammered into the coffin of his prospects. He imagined the sound amplified, broadcasting his failure to the entire floor. Miss Sterling leaned forward, her scrutiny unwavering. Freelance. Specifics? Clients? Projects you spearheaded. His mind, a battlefield of soccer schedules, bedtime stories, and fragmented design concepts, yielded little. There was a website for a local bakery. Promotional material for a school fundraiser as well. The words trailed off, the projects shrinking into insignificance even as he spoke them. Tap, tap, tap. Louder, it seemed, a relentless percussion accompanying his demise. He was failing spectacularly. He could feel the icy crawl of sweat, the telltale tremor in his fingers. He'd envisioned this meeting as a triumph, a showcase of his abilities and drive. Instead, he was a mumbling wreck sinking in a quicksand of doubt. He glanced up at Miss Sterling, and for a heartbeat, he thought he detected a flicker of something akin to empathy in her eyes, a brief thaw in her professional demeanor. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by that same unyielding assessment. The tapping continued, a constant, maddening punctuation mark underscoring his inadequacies. Tap, tap, tap. Fading hope. Ms. Abernathy, the interviewer, her demeanor as sharp as her tailored suit, tapped a pen against the mahogany desk, the sound a relentless counterpoint to the frantic rhythm in Leo's chest. So, Mr. Maxwell, your CV highlights a sabbatical. Quite a lengthy one, actually. Leo's throat constricted. Yes, ma'am. I dedicated the time to my daughter's upbringing. Her lips thinned, a telltale sign. He recognized the calculation in her eyes, the unspoken equation weighing single parent against potential productivity. He envisioned Lily's joyous face turning somber when he delivered the news. The radiant gleam in her chocolate eyes would dull, replaced by that all-too-familiar cloud of disappointment. He could almost feel the fragile tremble of her chin, hear the almost imperceptible sigh that telegraphed understanding beyond her years, a silent acknowledgement of adult burdens she shouldn't yet bear. He squeezed his eyes shut, momentarily eclipsing the image. I understand, Abernathy stated, her tone as neutral as Switzerland. Family commitments are laudable. However, this position demands unwavering dedication. Grueling hours, unforgiving deadlines. Are you confident you can fulfill those demands, considering your circumstances? Fulfill? He felt stretched to his limit already. Their already thin savings were evaporating like morning mist. He saw their refrigerator in his mind's eye, the stark interior revealing a landscape of scarcity. Pickles swimming in brine, milk nearing its sell-by date, and a few limp celery stalks. He'd promised Lily a spaghetti supper, a rare indulgence, predicated entirely on landing this job. He cleared his throat, the sound raw. I'm a diligent worker, Ms. Abernathy. Dedicated, inventive. And I assimilate new skills rapidly. His voice vibrated with barely suppressed anxiety. Apparently, it wasn't persuasive. She tented her fingers, her gaze focused on some distant point. We will be in contact, Mr. Maxwell. Rejection hung in the air, thick and heavy. He knew the verdict. The opportunity had slipped away like sand through his fingers. He rose, his shoulders bowing almost imperceptibly. The carefully crafted armor of optimism had cracked and shattered. He felt like a punctured tire, all momentum lost. As he neared the exit, Abernathy spoke. One moment, Mr. Maxwell. He paused, a spark of something, not quite hope, but perhaps simple curiosity, flickering within him. Her focus, however, wasn't on him. It was fixed on something on his resume. This drawing, she murmured, her voice losing its glacial edge, becoming almost hesitant. The one on the reverse. Did your daughter create this? He glanced down, recalling the crayon masterpiece Lily had insisted on adding that morning. A crooked sun, a family of stick figures holding hands, and an absurdly cheerful house sporting an enormous chimney. He managed a weak smile. Yes, that's her latest creation. Silence descended, her expression inscrutable. Then, she extended her hand, halting his departure. Please stay, she requested, the tone surprisingly gentle. Tell me about Lily. The end of the line. Miss Sterling sighed, a sound like air leaking from a punctured tire, stirring the dust motes pirouetting in the afternoon sunbeam. A tremor ran through Leo, a premonition settling like lead in his stomach. She began tidying the papers on her desk, squaring them with an almost obsessive care. Each precise tap against the glossy surface reverberated in the stillness, a stark countdown to the inevitable. Thank you for your time, Mr. Maxwell, she finally said, her voice stripped bare of its earlier cordiality, now just impersonal. Dismissive. The blood seemed to retreat from his face, leaving his skin clammy and cold. This wasn't a sudden blow, but a slow erosion, the ground dissolving beneath his feet. He braced himself, told himself it was a long shot. But the spoken words, the irrefutable period at the end of their meeting, felt like a body blow. Lily. How could he face Lily? She'd already envisioned their new place, a small, sun-drenched haven boasting a window seat overlooking the park. He manufactured a smile, a fragile facade threatening to crumble. Thank you, Miss Sterling, for seeing me. He levered himself out of the deep chair, the rich leather clinging momentarily to the fabric of his slacks. The chair seemed to mock his predicament with its luxurious comfort, a silent testament to a life just beyond his reach. His limbs felt weighted, unresponsive. He edged toward the door, his gaze locked onto the swirling pattern in the wood. He couldn't bear to meet her eyes. A corrosive shame burned in his throat, threatening to suffocate him. He reached for the cool, unyielding metal of the knob, its polished surface a sharp contrast to the roughness of his hands. He hesitated, still facing away from Miss Sterling. He longed to say something, anything, to reclaim a fragment of self-respect from the wreckage. To explain about Lily, about the gnawing desperation that fueled him. But the words remained trapped, strangled by his perceived inadequacy. He drew a deep breath, the air catching painfully in his chest. He had to confront Lily. He had to break the news. He turned the knob, the click echoing like a dropped gavel in the heavy silence. A fallen masterpiece. Leo mumbled a thank you that felt like swallowing gravel. He turned, already picturing Lily's crestfallen face. He'd have to tell her. He'd failed. Again. His fingers, numb with despair, fumbled with the portfolio. He hadn't even been given a chance. As he pivoted towards the door, a corner of Lily's drawing snagged. It slipped free, a vibrant explosion of crayon colors against the muted gray of the office. The paper pirouetted downwards, landing softly at Ms. Sterling's feet. He froze. Mortification bloomed in his chest. Now she'd think he was careless, disorganized, utterly incompetent. He wanted to disappear. Oh, for goodness sake, Ms. Sterling sighed, a sound that scraped against his already raw nerves. He braced himself for a scathing remark, but it didn't come. Instead, he watched as she bent, the severe lines of her suit momentarily softening as she reached for the fallen artwork. She straightened, holding the drawing delicately. The afternoon light caught the waxy sheen of the crayons, highlighting Lily's enthusiastic rendering of him. A towering figure with disproportionately large hands and a sunbeam smile, standing next to a stick-figure version of herself. Miss Sterling's expression was unreadable. She tilted her head, her gaze fixed on something near the bottom of the page. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Leo could hear the frantic thumping of his own heart. He risked a glance. He knew what she was looking at. Lily had scrawled a message in wobbly letters beneath their portrait. "My daddy is the best." A faint flush crept up Miss Sterling's neck. She lowered the drawing slowly, her eyes, which had seemed so cold and assessing moments before, now held a flicker of something softer. Compassion? He couldn't be sure. "Mr. Maxwell," she said, her voice lower now, the sharp edges slightly dulled. "About the project. Don't go." Rejection's acrid taste clung to Leo as he fled toward the door. He had to face Lily, deliver the words that had haunted him all day. Daddy didn't get the job. Shame radiated through him, hotter than Miss Sterling's crisp dismissal. His fingers tightened around the drawing, a soft rustle the only sound. "Mr. Maxwell?" He froze, hand gripping the cool doorknob. Without turning, he registered the hushed sound of Miss Sterling's approach, heels clicking on the gleaming floor, each tap a tiny drumbeat against his flagging hope. He steeled himself for another placating phrase, another dismissive wave. Instead, a surprising lightness touched his arm. Miss Sterling's hand. Smaller than anticipated, the skin unexpectedly soft, not the steely clamp he'd envisioned. He finally pivoted to face her. Her expression was transformed, the sharp edges of her face blurred by something he couldn't immediately place, a flicker of curiosity? Possibly even a hint of empathy? Her usually laser-like focus was now fixed on the paper in his grasp. "Don't go," she murmured, her voice a shade softer than he'd ever heard. Gone was the curt command, replaced by a hushed invitation. He blinked, thrown off balance. "Miss Sterling, She shook her head, her attention still captured by the drawing. "That's quite remarkable, Mr. Maxwell. The intricacy, the spatial awareness. It's clear this has significance for you." He crept up his neck. "Just a childish crayon sketch. A princess rescuing a dragon. But it was more. It was Lily. It was the physical embodiment of his love." He stumbled over his words. "It's for my daughter, Lily." Miss Sterling released his arm, yet the connection lingered in the air. She indicated the chairs before her imposing desk. "Please, sit down, Mr. Maxwell." He hesitated, suspicion battling a visceral need to understand this unexpected shift. Why the sudden reversal? Slowly, he retraced his steps, sinking into the worn leather. The mingled aromas of aged paper and citrusy polish drifted around him, an odd comfort against the rawness of his failure. Miss Sterling settled back into her own seat, her gaze still riveted to the drawing. Tell me about Lily. A new beginning. Leo's mouth went dry, a bitter apprehension clinging to his palate. Miss Sterling's gaze, a laser-like focus, bored into him. The heavy silence amplified the tremor in his hands. He had to face Lily. Confess his failure. Again. I apologize for taking up your time, Miss Sterling, he managed, scooting back, the chair scraping against the floorboards in the stillness. Her fingers formed a precise steeple, her face an inscrutable mask. You seem preoccupied, Mr. Maxwell. Is something weighing on you? He winced. It's complicated. After a beat, the words tumbled out, my daughter, Lily. She's my world. He raked a hand through his already unruly hair. She possesses this boundless imagination, crafting entire kingdoms from cardboard and scraps. She finds pigments in mud and berries. She sees possibilities others miss. He trailed off, the realization he was babbling hitting him hard. I just want to give her everything. Security. The freedom to create without worrying about necessities. A knot tightened in his throat. We've been barely scraping by, Miss Sterling. This opportunity, it was everything. He risked a glance upwards, bracing for pity or outright rejection. Instead, a subtle smile softened the severe lines of Miss Sterling's face. The usual flint in her eyes had dulled. You speak of her with remarkable fervor, Mr. Maxwell, she observed, her voice losing its initial edge. It's heartening. She leaned back, appraising him. Sunlight kissed the silver threads lacing her dark hair, turning them to shimmering filaments. This particular position demands a specific skill set, one that, perhaps, isn't your forte. However, she added, forestalling his protest, I perceive something else within you, Mr. Maxwell, a dedication, a spark, and a clear appreciation for imaginative thinking. A sudden light danced in her eyes. Tell me, how would you feel about spearheading our new community outreach program? It's a terran alias, Mr. Maxwell. We envision workshops for underserved children, arts initiatives, alliances with local schools. It requires someone with your kind of passion. Someone who understands the vital importance of nurturing creativity. Leo could only stare, dumbstruck. He'd come expecting defeat, finality. Now this? A fragile hope took flight within him. Are you offering me a different role? Miss Sterling nodded, her smile widening, a genuine expression that transformed her features. Consider it a clean slate, Mr. Maxwell. A fresh start. A wave of relief threatened to overwhelm him, a physical sensation that almost knocked him off balance. He could do this. He knew instinctively that he could. He could engage with kids, ignite their imaginations, empower them to express themselves. And, crucially, he could provide for Lily. Yes, he answered, his voice thick with emotion. Yes, Miss Sterling, I accept. Thank you. Words can't express my gratitude.